Do you know that 80% of millionaires are first-generation millionaires? This means that they got their wealth through their own efforts and not from inheritance, which also means that you can become a millionaire too. Are you curious on how these millionaires did it and how you can become a millionaire? In episode 4 of this ongoing series, Life-Changing Books in 5 Minutes, I'll summarize and share with you what I've learned from the book, The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko in under 5 minutes. Wealth is not the same as income. It doesn't matter if you have a high income. If you spend it all, you are not getting any wealthier. Wealth is what you accumulate, not what you spend. But here comes the question, how much is considered wealthy? You can use the following formula to gauge your wealth, where you multiply your age with your annual income and divide by 10. If your net worth is equal or more than this number, you are considered wealthy. Otherwise, you are considered as an under-accumulator of wealth. But here's a common saying, if you want to spend more, earn more. You're not wrong in saying this. But more often times, it's used to justify the cravings of one to spend more, and such a person tend to be under-accumulators of wealth, as they tend to forget about accumulating wealth and rather focuses more on consuming. As quoted by the authors, being frugal is the cornerstone of wealth building. In order to accumulate wealth, one has to focus more on earning and being frugal than on spending. More often times, the big spenders are promoted and sensationalized by the popular press, but behind the scenes, many self-made millionaires got to where they are by being frugal. Here's another thing that these self-made millionaires do to get them to where they are. They budget. You may be thinking, why would someone who is a millionaire need to budget? They became millionaires by budgeting and controlling their expenses, and that's how they stay affluent. Even after becoming a millionaire, it doesn't mean that one can start spending excessively and expect to still be considered wealthy. On the flip side, you can also be considered as a millionaire but not wealthy. Even if you have a net worth of $1 million, if you are below the amount as calculated by the previous formula, you are considered as an under-accumulator of wealth. The perfect analogy is to look at people whom you see jogs every day. They seem to be the ones that don't need to jog, but that's how they stay fit and look the way they are, by continuing to jog. Those who are wealthy continue to work on being financially fit. Meanwhile, those who are not financially fit do very little to change their status. Many people misunderstand that you must have a high income in order to become wealthy. However, the study conducted by the authors have shown that there are families that earn less than $100,000 in annual income, achieving not just millionaire status, but multiple times that of their expected wealth as calculated by the wealth formula. These people are what the authors call prodigious accumulators of wealth. If you are not able to increase your income significantly, you have to find other ways to become wealthy, such as being defensive, i.e. being frugal. However, you can't just be frugal, but you also have to invest diligently, no matter how small. Just as how small expenses can become big expenses over time, so can small investments become large investments over a period of time. One of the reasons people want to become millionaires is for the sake of their children. They want to give their children the best life possible, the life they never had. Thus, they give their children money regularly. Some may even pay for their mortgage, wedding, or cars, such that their children barely or completely did not contribute. These parents might think that they are doing what's best for their kids, but in reality, they are doing more harm than good. Children that grew up receiving such gifts from their parents become ever so dependent on their parents and never learn how to stand up on their own economically. What if their parents are no longer around and they no longer have such cash gifts to supplement their income? Who's going to pay for the mortgage and their cars? The children of such parents will not be able to keep up with the high consumption life they got themselves into, and it'll be harder for them to scale down to a more modest one too. For the sake of your children's future, even if you have the capability to take care of them for the rest of your life, it's better to limit such cash gifts in order to teach them how to be independent, and only give them once you have deemed them responsible and ready. It sounds far-fetched, but the more dollars adult children receive, the fewer dollars they accumulate, while those who are given fewer dollars accumulate more. Many people think that the type of business you enter determines whether you'll become rich. However, the study conducted by the authors over 20 years across a wide spectrum of industries has concluded that the character of the business owner is much more important in predicting his level of wealth than the classification of his business. Being in a profitable industry does not guarantee that your business will be highly productive. Even if your business is highly productive, you may never become wealthy as a result of your high consumption life. Sure, there are certain industries that are more profitable. However, more often times, dull companies with steady earnings growth make the best investments. The Millionaire Next Door covers factual characteristics of millionaires in America over the span of 20 years. It shows that majority of millionaires, namely 80% of them, are all self-made first-generation millionaires. Entrepreneurs also made up a huge portion of these self-made millionaires. The type of business matters in terms of profitability, but for its long-term growth, it's the character of these businessmen that matters more. All things said, the story doesn't end there, as you have to think about how you want to bring up your children. You may have the money to give your children a good life, but is it really the right way to bring your children up, where they grow up and get more and more dependent on you in terms of economic care? Money can solve a lot of problems, but at the same time, it can also create more, and probably even worse outcomes. With that said, are you ready to become a millionaire?